special session this week with this episode because Sean is coming out of a breakup with Emily, and many women are going to be broken up with, 25 of them over the course of this season. I thought it might be good to have a session just discussing some breakup tips. So here's some tips that I put together, 10 tips for dealing with a breakup as I work with patients as they deal either with broken marriages, broken relationships, teens and dating situations. Here are some of my tips for handling breakups. 1. Acknowledge and let out your negative feelings. So negative feelings are normal. When something doesn't go well, our negative feelings are a warning system that lets us know something didn't go well. And so whether it's sadness, loneliness, frustration, hurt, those are normal. You should have those feelings when something like this happens in a relationship that you were invested in and really liked ends. So crying, talking, journaling, drawing, for some guys and even for some girls, running, jogging, some physical activity allows you to get some of those feelings out in a healthy way. Second, don't jump to any conclusions, judgments, or decisions when you have this significant intensity of emotions. So when our emotional volume is high, our thinking volume is low. And so when we have these intense feelings, especially negative feelings about hurt and loneliness, frustration and anger, sadness, we don't want to be making any decisions about what to do next, about whether it's financial decisions, whether it's another relationship decision to get back in this relationship, or am I a loser, am I a failure, am I unworthy, am I a reject? We don't want to come to any conclusions when we're in that kind of a thinking state because we're not going to be able to see things clearly to make a good decision. Number 3. Remember the good times of the relationship. I mean, there were a lot of fantastic situations that happened. That's why it hurts whenever it's gone. There were some great things that happened in that relationship. And so to be able to keep that in mind too, because no situation is perfect in life. There's good and bad in every situation. So just like this breakup, yeah, it ends with some negative aspects to it, but there were a lot of positives. And to be able to grow to be a mature person, we have to be able to integrate positive and negative things about a situation together to be able to look at the whole situation accurately. And even when it comes time to getting involved in future relationships, you want to be able to acknowledge the great times that you had in this relationship, so that you understand the motivation to reach out to develop new relationships. You need a good advisor. So when you've had a breakup, reach out, whether that's a parent, whether that's a good friend, whether that's a sibling, reach out to somebody. You need somebody to help ground you, to be a sounding board, to be a shoulder to cry on, but they can give you good advice to help you stay in control, manage some of your impulses and some of your desires that come whenever we're hurt, whether it's to lash out, say angry things, send a terrible email or text. We need to run that by an advisor who's a little bit more clear thinking and can guide and advise us during this very stressful, difficult, adverse time. Then whenever we're thinking clearly, we want to be able to process, well, why did the breakup happen? I mean, we want to be able to know why. If there's something I was doing wrong, well, what can I fix? What are some of my weaknesses that I can work on? If it's something in him, well, how can I recognize, or that other person, how can I recognize in other people more clearly some of the warning signs that might lead to conflictual or difficult relationships? We have to be very honest, self-reflection, self-assessment, really sit down and take a good hard look at ourselves to figure out, because we don't want history to repeat itself. And if we don't look inside, if we don't figure out why, well, we're probably going to make the same mistakes over and over in relationships as we go on. We really want to become a better person as a result of this relationship. It was sort of a homework assignment. It was sort of a class. We want to be able to ace the class, learn what we need to learn so that whenever the next relationship comes along, or even better, whenever Mr. Right or Mrs. Right comes along, we want to be able to have the skills and the understanding of relationships to be able to engage in that relationship in a very powerful, fantastic way to make that relationship really work and have that fulfillment that we really want out of a relationship. We also want to take a look at, if we're really hurt, did we get too dependent on the relationship or on that person in our life for our happiness? We never want our happiness to depend on another person. Sure, we're going to be sad when we lose a good friend or a connection, but if we're really broken up about it, we probably got a little bit too dependent on that person for our happiness. So we want to just be able to be careful and watch for that. A sixth element is be careful about jumping into the old relationship again or into another one too quickly. So we've been wounded. We want to make sure that we heal from that wound before we start to take, some assessment of the lay of the land relationship-wise, and to be able to, to pull the trigger and to jump in another relationship. And so many times people either get caught back up in the old relationship because they feel that will heal the hurt, or they jump into another one too quickly, and the whole process repeats itself. To recognize that sometimes you're just not a match. Sometimes it's just chemistry. It's not that one was better than the other, regardless of who broke up with who. It's sort of irrelevant. You're just not for each other at this point. It's like some people like Chinese food, some people like Italian food. One isn't better than the other. There's just a preference and a chemistry for it. Know what energizes you and fills you up, and take part in it. If you have some activities that are hobbies, that are interests for you, that are fueling for you, that give you life, that give you energy, start to take part in them. Don't let the hurt of the relationship sort of weigh you down and empty your tank. Take part in some of those activities that are beneficial for you, that will build you up. Be careful not to be fearful of a relationship again. Sometimes people get hurt and they don't want to go. We saw at the end of this last episode that one of the ladies says, well, I got hurt to open up and get hurt so much. Why would I want to open up again? I hope that she doesn't really carry that on. That's just the moment, her speaking in the moment there. But sometimes people unfortunately get hurt and they don't want to take the risk of being hurt again, so they build walls. We don't want to build walls. We want to be able to learn from this so that we can learn how to build healthy relationships for the future. And lastly, take a look at some of the spiritual practices that you're involved in, or grow some spiritual practices. Help you connect with God. He's really the source of so much peace and so much comfort and so much happiness. So to be able to connect with your spiritual practices and God. And for me, the Bible is just a great book of wisdom, and a great book talking about pain and relationship, and how to manage pain, and how to be healthy and fulfilled in your relationships in life. So make that spiritual connection and reach out that way as well. So those are my 10 tips to how to deal with breakups. See you next time.